Governor Rick Scott was in town for a campaign rally, and he received an endorsement from a Jacksonville manufacturing company.
And while he was here, we wanted to get his take on several issues affecting the First Coast. So the first thing we asked him about, the lawsuit and the request for an emergency injunction filed to block his appointment of a new Jacksonville City Council member. Governor Scott picked Terrence Freeman to represent District 10. This after City Councilman Reggie Brown was removed following a federal indictment.
That lawsuit filed by Brenda Priestley Jackson says Freeman's appointment was illegal because he didn't meet the residency requirements for District 10. Here's what the governor had to say about it.
I followed all the rules in doing that. I took our time, found good people, and Terrence is going to do a good job. It's completely in compliance with the law.
On the same day Freeman was appointed, he leased a house in District 10, and he told First Coast News last week that he and his family plan to move to the new address. A hearing has not been set, and a judge has not made a decision yet on that injunction request.
Now, we also asked Governor Scott about a story that got a lot of reaction from many of you on our Facebook page. Less than 2 weeks after signing a bill into law that defined private versus public beaches, the governor signed an executive order basically saying, forget it.
Yeah, forget about it. The bill he passed in March restricted beach access based on wet sand. That law went into effect July 1st, and beachfront property owners could kick anyone off of their beach up to the tide line.
So you could walk within the feet in the water, but if that sand's dry, you could have gotten the boot. Governor Scott says he was in fact feeling the heat from critics for signing that bill in the first place.
I want to make sure there's no confusion. I want to make sure that everybody knew these beaches are for you. I've asked our Department of Environmental Protection to make sure they work with the counties, work with individuals to make sure everybody knows that the beaches are for our citizens. I put an executive order out, said our agencies will not do anything that would impact an individual's right to use the beach.